Hello, you're watching VNA News Bulletin. I'm Bao from Hanoi, and now the headlines as usual.
Vietnam and Cambodia issue joint statement pledging to continue advancing bilateral ties. Vietnam and Thailand enhance friendship and cooperation. Vietnam attends first forum of Greater Mekong sub-region countries.
Vietnam and Cambodia have issued a joint statement on the occasion of President Chen Dae-Quang's state visit to Cambodia, pledging to continue strengthening and advancing bilateral relations. On June 16th, President Quang and his entourage concluded their two-day visit. In the morning the same day, President Chen Dae-Quang paid courtesy call to Great Supreme Patriarch of Mohanikea sect Thepom at Unalam Pagoda. He expressed his belief that with Thepom at the helm, Cambodia's Buddhism will increasingly flourish, and with his role as prestige, the host will make more positive contributions to the solidarity, friendship, neighborliness between Vietnam and Cambodia. Thepom welcomed the visit, which was expected to tighten bilateral friendship and cooperation, and wished that on the back of past achievements, Vietnam-Cambodia's ties will be everlasting. Meeting Great Supreme Patriarch of Dhammayuttika sect Bulletin at Say Po Pagoda, the Vietnamese leader affirmed that the Vietnamese party, state and people will do their best to nurture the tradition of friendship between two nations. He said he hopes that Bulletin will continue educating Buddhist and Cambodian people about the tradition of bilateral ties. The host, for his part, said Cambodian Buddhists wished for peace, prosperity and development for Cambodia and Vietnam, and for Southeast Asia in general. He stated confidently that the two countries will stand side by side to reinforce their solidarity and friendship. Also in the morning, President Quang held a meeting with representatives of Vietnamese businesses operating in Cambodia. The state leader spoke highly of the role of Vietnamese investors and the Association of Vietnamese Investors in Cambodia, saying that successful joint projects in trade, investment and tourism have increased the state budget and created more jobs in Cambodia, thereby contributing to the bilateral comprehensive cooperation. Vietnam has invested $3.2 billion in 172 projects in Cambodia, becoming the fifth largest investor in the country, mostly in the fields of finance, banking, energy, mining, agroforestry, and telecommunications. Vietnamese tourist arrivals to Cambodia have grown year on year, and Vietnam has been among the top sources of visitors to the country over the past 5 years. On the occasion, the president also presented a $1 million vocational training school to Prey Vang province. Thai Deputy Prime Minister Thanassa Pathima Prakon his unofficial visit to Vietnam, which asked the Deputy Prime Minister to see how his trip is processing.
Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc met with the Thai Deputy Prime Minister in Hanoi on June 16. He said the two countries should collaborate to successfully implement an action plan to realize the Vietnam-Thailand strategic partnership in the 2014-2018 period and effectively deploy an agreement on the joint cabinet meeting in the coming time. As Vietnam and Thailand are the world's largest rice exporters, the Prime Minister proposed that the two nations cooperate to help their rice farmers. He said greater efforts should be made to raise bilateral trade to $20 billion. The Thai Deputy Prime Minister said Vietnam and Thailand are carrying out tourism cooperation programs to attract tourists. As more Thai investors are interested in the Vietnamese market, he said he hopes the Vietnamese government will continue to create favorable conditions for them. Earlier, the Thai Deputy Prime Minister held talks with his Vietnamese counterpart Vũ Đức Đam. During the talks, Deputy Prime Minister Đam spoke highly of the Vietnam-Thailand friendship and cooperation, which he said has been consolidated and further developed extensively. For his part, the Thai Deputy Prime Minister expressed his wish that the two countries' friendly cooperative ties will be further strengthened. He said as this year marks the 45th anniversary of the Vietnam-Thailand diplomatic ties, the two countries should work closely to successfully organize joint activities to celebrate the event.
On June 16, Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc hosted a reception for Asian Development Bank President Takehiko Nakao, who is on visit to Vietnam.
Prime Minister Phuc told his guests Vietnam always attaches importance to relations with ADB, considering the bank as one of the leading capital, technical assistance and consultancy providers for Vietnam. The government leader said Vietnam pledges to make full use of official development assistance in general and ADB funding in particular for the country's economic development. He asked the bank to provide financial support for the country's adaptation to climate change, especially coping with drought and saltwater intrusion in the Central Highlands and Mekong Delta. ADB President Takehiko Nakao expressed his impression on Vietnam's achievements during the country's renewal process and its international integration. He said ADB will continue supporting Vietnam in resolving challenges, particularly coping with climate change. The same day, ADB President Takehiko Nakao was received by Nguyễn Văn Bình, head of the Party Central Committee's Commission for Economic Affairs. Bình expressed his pleasure at the development of cooperation between Vietnam and the bank, which he said has become more effective and practical. President Takehiko Nakao praised Vietnam for its important socio-economic achievements, including ensuring the macroeconomy, reducing poverty, curbing inflation, and boosting sustainable growth.
Vice President Đặng Thị Ngọc Thịnh met with Chair-President Milot Zeman, Senate President Milan Stek, and Vice Speaker of the Parliament Wojciech Filip in Prague on June 15th as she began her working visit to the European country. In these meetings, Vice President Thịnh affirmed that Vietnam continually attaches importance to its traditional friendship and multi-faceted cooperation with the Czech Republic, while implementing its foreign policy of openness, multilateralization, and diversification of international relations. The host also emphasized that the Czech Republic treasures its relations with Vietnam. To better exploit potentials, the two sides agreed to make careful preparations for the fifth meeting of the Vietnam-Czech Republic Intergovernmental Committee on Economic Cooperation, scheduled for July in Prague. They also stressed the need to complete negotiations on and sign an agreement on cultural, educational, and training cooperation as soon as possible. Vietnam pledged support for the Czech Republic's strengthening of its relations with ASEAN, while the European country affirmed its backing of stronger Vietnam-EU ties and the early signing of the EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement, as well as EU recognition of Vietnam's market economy status. Thịnh informed the host of complicated developments in the EC, which are affecting peace, stability, maritime and aviation security and safety of nations, both inside and outside the region. Both sides reached a consensus that all disputes should be addressed by peaceful means on the basis of international law. The first ever forum of the Greater Mekong sub-region countries, which include Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam and Thailand, kicked off in Bangkok, Thailand on June 16th.
During the three-day forum, participants will engage in a number of discussions to exchange ideas about developing the economy and increasing the competitive edge in the sub-region. Close to 600 delegates from the Greater Mekong sub-region countries, Europe and Japan are expected to join the event, encompassing small and medium-sized enterprises. The long-term goal of the forum is promoting sub-regional cooperation, removing trade and investment barriers, and enhancing dialogues between governments and private economic sectors.
GMS countries should promote their strength as a part of ASEAN with a good infrastructure network and connectivity with major partners such as India, China, Japan, the Republic of Korea, Australia and New Zealand.
close cooperation between the 5 countries is expected to make the sub-region more competitive in Asia-Pacific and beyond.
Deputy Foreign Minister Bulletin has said Vietnam is holding a big opportunity to enter the next production revolution, which is happening around the world.
At a workshop in Hanoi on June 16th, Deputy Foreign Minister Sơn said after finishing negotiations on or signing new generation free trade agreements like the Trans-Pacific Partnership or the bilateral FTAs with the EU and the Eurasian Economic Union, Vietnam has advanced to a very important stage of development that requires strong mindset reforms and high resolve to accelerate national industrialization and modernization. Alessandro Goglio, head of the Southeast Asia Division of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, said his body is enhancing cooperation with Southeast Asian countries to boost bilateral dialogue, support the region's connectivity and integration, and assist their policy priorities. Therefore, thorough studies and sharing information to identify the nature and impacts of the next production revolution are necessary, he added. At the workshop, participants muled over the revolution's features and its challenges to development, mindset and policy changes in the world, how to optimize opportunities and minimize the revolution's reverse influence, and what Vietnam should do to tap into its potential amidst the revolution.
A 3-day conference on impact of the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal on Vietnam convened in the southern province of Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu on June 16th.
The event gathers representatives from the National Assembly's Council of Ethnic Affairs, Standing Committee and Committee for External Relations, newly elected legislative deputies, experts and businessmen. Participants will delve deeply into the content of the TPP agreement, including chapters related to labor, intellectual property, technical barriers to trade, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, as well as rules of origin. They will discuss the role of the legislature in ratifying the pact and overseeing its implementation. Vietnam's commitments, legal gaps, law amendment options, and the preparation of domestic firms are also subjects to be discussed. The conference will lay the groundwork for further discussion and for the vote on the ratification of the TPP that is slated to take place at the first National Assembly's session in July.
And that has wrapped up our news bulletin. Thanks for joining us, and goodbye for now. 12 other Vietnamese catfish exporters are now eligible to ship their products to the U.S., pushing the total number of qualified firms to 57. According to the National Agroforestry Fisheries Quality Assurance Department, there are 4 more firms on the waiting list, and the agency could work with the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Food Safety and Inspection Service to speed up the verification process. The U.S. is the biggest import market for Vietnamese shellfish, with a stable demand and good prices. The Vietnam Association of Seafood Exporters and Producers reported that in 2015, the total value of shellfish exports reached $1.6 billion, 10% lower than the value in 2014. 6 out of the 8 largest export markets for Vietnamese char catfish saw reductions in export value in 2015. However, by May 15 this year, Vietnam shipped $130 million worth of charfish to the U.S., up 7.6% compared to the same period last year. The export volume is expected to see a yearly increase of between 10 and 50% in the next quarter. And that has wrapped up our news bulletin. Thanks for joining us, and goodbye for now.